I will give just three of my inspiration principles I have had in life. Is one is have a dream, never give up, and take risk. For me, is those are the things is that have given me most of the fulfillment. From a personal point of view, and then make me happy. And then that is probably the fourth. Whatever you do, you have to choose what makes you happy, what makes you passionate about. From selling oranges on the street to be a big business owner. If selling oranges on the street makes you happy, do that. You don't want to be an owner of business that you are not happy of. So those four things for me: have a dream, never give up, take risk, and be happy.
Finance is the career up for discussion on today's podcast. Our guest today has 30 plus years of experience in leading financial operations in multinational environments. He describes his professional tagline as 3 companies, 4 continents, and 7 countries. He has led regional businesses in Latin America, South Europe, and West Europe. He has been the head of finance in Mexico, Central America, Portugal, and Brazil. He's currently the head of finance and administration in Nestle at Angola, one of the biggest food and beverages company in the world. It is my pleasure to introduce Miguel Angel Lopez on today's podcast and discuss with him the journey of his job. Before we get started with the podcast, hit that subscribe button and press the bell icon for an inspirational career video coming up this Friday only on The Career Show. You are listening to The Career Show, a podcast that helps you find the right career and inspires you to follow your passion. My name is Trishant Kansrajani and I'm a student seeking answers to career-based questions that we all have. I'm here to sit down with career specialists and talk to them about the lessons learned during the journey of their career. Hello, Miguel. Good afternoon for me. Good morning for you. Thank you so much for coming on to the Career Show. It's such an honor to have you here.
Good morning. A pleasure for me. It's to be with you and with the Career Show.
Perfect. So let's get right into it. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself for my audience in a minute, if you can?
Well, I am Miguel Angel Lopez. I am Mexican. Currently, I am living in Angola. From a work experience point of view, I have been working with 3 companies in 4 continents and 7 countries so far. So that is basically about my, personal and professional experience.
Truly global person, right? 3 companies, 4 continents, 7 countries. Like I mentioned in my introduction, we're going to be talking a lot about finance today because you're the finance head of Nestle right now in Angola. But you started off in the consulting industry. I know that it is not easy to get into the big 3, a company like McKinsey. So do you want to quickly talk about one of the best things that happened to you by working in the consulting industry and one of the challenges that you faced in the consulting industry?
Let's start with one of the best things. I think is one of the best things working in any of the consulting firms is gives you the opportunity to really, exchange from what is the theory to what is the actual practice. What is the books telling you, is to do, and then actually you have a business case or you have something in front of you that the people is asking you to do the analysis and then to give recommendations, and you know that those recommendations will hit is some customers, some business, and most probably will be implemented. So I think that is one of the best things. Is to work in a consulting, that you are able to look and to be able to recommend something. As you move into the consulting, because obviously it's the first years of experience, there is a lot of demand for you to spend on really analyzing the things. And then most of the companies in the first years of your experience, they make you work hard, and they make you work 24 hours a day. And there is no weekends. You can be working weekends. So I think that is probably the most challenging situation. It's obviously you are going out from the university, join a consulting company, and then you are immersed on that, and then you don't see is where a break. That is basically the most challenging. So here, is you need to, as an advice, is understand. Is take the most of it. Learn, but make sure that you find the right balance. To find time for you to have a break, to have a nice work-life balance. In that sense.
But like you said, this challenge is a good challenge because what you get to learn is different from what you learn via university and books, right? So consulting is a complete university in itself. But yes, it does come with the challenge of working 24 hours and dealing with the work-life balance. So, I mean, congratulations on that phase of your journey. But let's talk about your move from consulting to finance. Why did you make that switch?
For me, the first thing is you have to have a dream. Is what is, is what you would like to accomplish on life. What will make you happy. And for that, is you say, this is what I would like to pursue. And for me, I wanted to be a CFO. I say I want to become the lead finance person in a company. And at that time, is that company gave me the opportunity to join the finance departments. For me, that was doing the first step into following my dream. So that was the move. Is that was the why. I see this as my first step to move into that direction. But really, I was not looking to the short term. I was not looking into payroll analysis. I was looking, okay, this company will give me the opportunity to do my dream, or my dream to become true. And that was the why. That was the why, and then I joined.
So you had a dream 20 years ago and you achieved it. So I know you've been a CFO of a company. You had this dream 20, 30 years ago and you're still working in that industry. What has made you work in the finance industry every single day? What is that attracting part of finance for you?
I think is if you are just static, it's going to be probably your life a little bit boring, regardless if it is finance, if it is consulting, if it is engineering, whatever. So you need to understand, is what is the spectrum of each of the areas. And finance, is gives you the opportunity of have many areas of opportunities. Sometimes, is you think finance is pure accounting, and then sometimes people say, "Oh, that is boring." Could be boring for some, and the others for others could be a dream. A dream of being in accounting. It depends on what you want to do. But it's finance. It moves from accounting to treasury to financial planning to strategic planning, mergers and acquisition, investment finance. So it has many areas, and I think that is what is attractive. That is what makes you, to stay longer in an area like a finance or in a company when you are moving across the different areas. And when you are moving across different areas, you spend 2 or 3 years in each of these areas. And first of all, you learn. Second, you give something for that. Is really, there is value on what you are doing and the company recognizes that. Then you see that successfully implemented, and then you move to another one. So I think this is like a cycle. It's learning for yourself, then giving for the business, the company you work for, see that implemented and see the results. Then ready for the next move. And that is, what has made my life spend all the time in finance.
No, I think you're completely correct. And you correctly mentioned out that a lot of people think that finance is very niche, whereas it is a very broad topic. When I was trying to do these information interviews with people at different investment banks, I realized that there were more than 15 divisions of finance at a big bank. So it just shows that there are so many avenues to get into finance. And personally, that's why I want to get into the finance industry personally. So moving on, you mentioned that you started off as a payroll analyst, and now you're the head of finance at Nestle. So do you want to quickly take us through all the different kind of job functions that you had personally throughout your journey in finance?
Well, I started, as I mentioned to you, and the finance area, it was payroll analyst of one of the consulting and technology companies. It was at that time was the second to third biggest company in terms of consulting and technology at that time. So I joined finance as a payroll analyst. Then after a while, I moved into financial planning, then treasury, then corporate controller. And then after corporate controller, I got the opportunity to move to US as a finance director for Latin America. But one of my biggest learnings, or I say what gave me the force, the power, to continue into this, I still remember today, is I remember when I was on the payroll analyst area. I was probably my first year in that company. Then for some, personal reasons, reasons. My boss and the boss of my boss was not able to be in the monthly business update that has to be given to the management committee. So basically, they asked me, Miguel Angel, can you please give the presentation? And at that time, it was just making, the first step, saying, yes, I can do it. I have never been able to present to the management committee, and they were asking me to do that. And I prepare myself very well. As I look into all the presentation, understanding, I did my own part of the presentation. Then I give the business update to the management committee. And what was really inspiring and motivating, I would say, is that at the end, the CEO of the company said, guys, I would like to give you, is my recognition to everybody for the business update, but a special one to Miguel Angel, because that is the way I would like you to present in the future. It's very summarized, very pragmatic, but the most important is not about the today, it's about the future. So for me, that was a very big recognition and give me a lot of force, give me a lot of motivation to really continue. I still remember that day, and I think that is one of the things, is that you need to find in a job. It's really the job fulfilling you as a person, fulfilling you as a professional, and the people is recognizing what you do. And that then will start giving you, is the power to continue going on and on.
You take the opportunity in that case, and I think that is so important for every career path that anyone takes. Whenever an opportunity lands in your feet, you should be there.
And don't be afraid. And don't be afraid, because I remember, you are so young, you are 22, 23 years old, and then it's suddenly asking somebody saying, please come and do a presentation of the business update to the management committee. Sometimes, you say, I cannot. And one of the things that you need to put in your mind, everything is possible. Everything is possible. So just take the courage, prepare yourself, and do your best. So that was, my experience in Mexico, back in Mexico. Then I moved to Florida, in Boca Raton, Florida, as finance director for that company. And I spent 3 years there. One of the biggest learnings in that experience is really being able to lead business a little bit more virtually. Today is like the way it is, but this was given more for the pandemic reasons. Everybody went online, virtual, and so on and so on. But I still remember, 15 years ago, all of this, I had to do it from one state in the US, and then being able to start, is dealing with the different business in the different countries in Latin America. So that was the biggest experience, the biggest learning is how to inspire business, how to lead people when you are far away, in that sense. Then I moved back to Mexico as finance director of that company. And that was when I achieved my dream, in that sense, because as I stated before, I wanted to be a CFO of a company. Then I moved to Nestlé, where I started again. Complete different industry, from consulting and technology to food and beverage, but still in finance. I spent my first years in Mexico in doing a little bit more of strategic planning and controlling functions. Then moved to Portugal as a controller of a business in Portugal. I moved to France as a finance director, CFO of a joint venture, a company that Nestlé has. I spent 5 years in Nestlé France. And then I moved to Brazil to be the head of HR services. But it was the opportunity to lead an organization of about 600 young professionals. For me, that was the best. It's really to be able to manage that organization, to deliver the results to the organization, but as well to be able to coach, to lead, and to live together with 600 young professionals today. Then from there, I moved back to Switzerland, where I was in charge of leading a couple of global transformational projects. So doing from all the strategic, the visioning of, is what the company wanted to do, doing all the paper, doing all the imagination, all the consulting job, and then as well, then going into implementing in the countries. And I still remember, one of my bosses, which was on Nestlé, when we started this global transformation project, is, Miguel Angel, I don't want consultants here. I want consultants that actually implement. Then since I have in my career that I wanted to be in different countries, in different cultures, then Nestlé asked me, Miguel Angel, would you like to to be the CFO in Angola in West Africa. And say we are. I mean, is why not? I mean, is that makes me. I mean, is feel good to understand another way of doing business, different cultures, and actually I'm here now.
Well, that's a truly international, diverse kind of career journey in the field of finance, so which is simply amazing. What I wanted to touch on is the different industries you've worked in, right? You mentioned that in the start you worked in a more consulting technology industry, and currently you work with Nestle, which is a food and beverage industry. So how is financial planning, finance work different in both these industries, if I could put it that way?
I think is there are areas within finance that is basically the same. I mean, that doesn't change. Regardless the industry, it doesn't change. And this is like the accounting, reporting, following all accounting standards, that doesn't change. That is the same in any industry that you have. What changed is a little bit more when you start doing more the planning, the strategic part of the business. I mean, that is the big change. Is from understanding. I mean, how can you sell computers? How can you sell technology consulting services, or help the business analyze the brand positioning, the product positioning? What will be, I mean, the benefits for the consumer, the benefits for the community, the benefits for the company? I mean, in one of the process, from a finance point of view, I mean, it's about being able to interact with the different areas of the company, and then is being able to deliver on a product that will only not benefit the company, will not only benefit the shareholders, but also has a purpose that will benefit our consumers. Because one of the things, I mean, is that you start looking into companies like Nestle, is really, Nestle looks a lot into social responsibility. But social responsibility not just about, I mean, is helping the communities in the countries they are, but also the products that Nestle has is about, I mean, fulfilling a purpose. Fulfilling is bringing some benefits to the consumer. It's not just selling.
Like you said, accounting principles stay the same, but when it comes to planning, selling, and strategizing, that's where the different industries play a role. So thank you for highlighting that. Next thing that I wanted to touch on is any challenges that you faced while you were in the finance industry. And I want you to pick out only one challenge. What is that one challenge that this new generation of students should keep in mind as they enter the finance industry?
I think is the challenge that you need to take is you need to understand the business, or to understand really the company you work for, and to be able to do your best in order to deliver the results. So sometimes, I mean, is if you are in the finance industry and you are not understanding the business, then you are not adding the value. So for me, is regardless the position that you have in finance, you need to understand the business side of that. And if you don't understand, then your contribution could have less impact into the company. So that is my recommendation. I mean, it's based on my experience. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's invest, take the time to understanding the business side, the mission, the vision of the company. Understanding, I mean, is how your contribution by doing the job that you are doing here will impact the shareholders' value. If you think in that way, I mean, you will be adding value to you, to the company, to the business. So this is the link between what you do and what is delivering shareholders' value.
I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, because that usually is not something people think about. And I think it's a challenge in the sense that you need to develop this thinking.
That was basically one of my kind of, explanations or sharing to all those young people when I was leading the shared services, because the people didn't understand. And is, I am doing here is order entry, order capturing, or I'm just doing this, is debits and credits. I say, but this has a purpose. Is the most important is if you do this, it has an impact of the shareholders' value. If you do the wrong entry in terms of accounting, then that will make the financial reports go wrong. And it may have a big impact and really the company lose a lot of money or lose credibility. So when you start, is making this connection, then is you understand
What I also wanted to talk about is that, like you've been saying, you're truly a global person. You've worked in 4 different continents, 7 countries. Has your work been different because every country you've visited is different? And I'm talking in terms, not in terms of culture and language barriers, but just in terms of your work. Has your work changed because the country is completely different? And because of that country norms and regulations, you need to work differently.
The day-to-day of the job, the purpose of the job doesn't change a lot. But there is one thing, as you mentioned at the beginning, is don't take into account culture. But I think you need to take into account the culture. To really, is perform the right job, either finance, either sales, either marketing, or whatever, is you are doing, is my recommendation is you need to understand the culture you live in. And that is one of the challenges for many global citizens have. Of global expatriates. That you move from country to country, and then is you don't really spend or invest the time to understanding the culture. You go to another country and you continue living your, let's say, Mexican life or your American life, and you don't integrate into the local country. You don't understand the local. And I see that happening a lot. Is whenever I have moved into the different countries, I see these groups of Latinos, this group of Indians, this group of Americans that after work they get together, and then it's after some time. You see people spending 4 or 5 years in that country, and then they are not able even to speak. Is the language. So if you want to really have a positive impact in the organization that you work for, you need to understand the local culture. And in order to understand the local culture, you need to integrate. You need to understand the language.
Well, 100%. I completely agree with you. The only reason I told you to not take into consideration culture and language is because it goes without saying that culture and language are the biggest things that you need to accommodate to when you move to a new place. But in terms of my question, I simply wanted to understand how the finance regulations has changed as you have moved from one country to another and how you've adapted to those finance regulations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think it's really being able to create the right connections as well. Connect the dots. Connect the dots. You get into the country and then is you just start reading. Is what is the regulations, what doesn't understand. Because one thing is as well. Is sometimes the regulations, which is the theory, and then the way they are applied. So whenever is you arrive to a new country, is you need to be able to spend time to understand those changes in regulations, ways of working, but then being able to network and to connect and to see really, is how all this apply. I can give you, my different experience. It's moving from Mexico to Europe in the different countries. Really, Europe is much more advanced in terms of business, in terms of regulations, more strict, more discipline. And is whenever is you ask something a bank, for example, saying is, I would like to make just as simple, a transfer from this account to this account, and then it happened because this all the systems, all the regulations, all the discipline is there. Then is you move to developing countries like in Africa, Angola, and then you say that you see that you ask the bank saying, okay, yes, I want to transfer this money or this investment to this, and then you can take 2 weeks to do that. And it's not about bureaucracy. It's not about bureaucracy, really. It's about the way of working. It's about, is the understanding the cultural side. Then you understand, is you have, the ability to connect with the people that is really making the decision in that process. Then is you just give a call and say, guys, I'm doing this for this transfer because the people wants to understand the why. That is the difference. For example, in Europe, is you just transfer the money and that's it, or do it at change investment and that's it. In countries like in Angola, the people like to understand why you are doing that. And I was really upset. When I just first joined here in Angola, I said, is what does that matter? For you to ask me why I am changing the money from this bank to this bank. It is Nestle money, it is my money. But then if you don't understand, is that this is the way of working, then you will not succeed. So really take the time to understand the regulations, but they take the time to connect with the different people so that people tell you, how those regulations are being applied in the country.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to highlight. And thank you so much for doing that. I think that is super important to not only understand the rules, but it is also important to learn how you apply them in that particular situation. Now, I wanted to touch on you leading at Nestle, you strategizing at Nestle. I mean, I'm sure it's a huge responsibility to be the head of finance at a big company as Nestle. So I wanted to understand, how does strategizing work at these big companies, and what can smaller companies learn from this? Or these new students learn from this?
I think it has different levels of, let's say, of strategizing in that sense. In global companies such as Nestle, I mean, is you can do strategizing even, I mean, it's at the country level and the brand level position. I mean, if you are marketing person, I mean, is and you are going to launch a new brand, a new product in the market, I mean, you need to understand and you need to be able to strategize. And that, I mean, is a start. I mean, this is the basic probably of strategy. So it depending, I mean, is what is the scope that you are doing. But then it comes, I mean, it's to the big or global strategizing projects that you have, and where the companies, I mean, are looking into a more long-term future. No? So is how can I really, I mean, is move into a way that the company continue developing, continue adding value. And then is you have to do more global strategizing projects. And then I think that is, for me, is not the difference, but don't think that strategizing only happens at the headquarters of the company. Strategizing happens at all levels of the organization, regardless the position that you have. I mean, for me, I mean, it's just having a goal and thinking how you will reach that goal involves strategizing. So it's from the more basic to the more complex areas of strategizing that moves into companies such as Nestle.
What you just said reminded me of something you had mentioned to me the other day, and that is, you think that execution and strategizing are equally important. That is one of your work beliefs. Why do you think so? I know we just touched upon it, so I wanted to dive a little deeper into it. Why strategizing and execution are equally important?
For me, I mean, I really, really believe that execution is as important as strategize. And I go back to my previous learning from one of my bosses. He was interviewing me, I mean, for that job, for that position within Nestle. He mentioned, saying is, I don't want consultants here. I don't want consultants that just come and tell me the strategy. I want someone that develops the strategy, tells the company what is the strategy, but also execute, also implement. And that's it. I mean, you will be losing millions of money and energy and brain from people if you just ask about ideas, how to improve. If you don't implement them, it's worthless. You need to be able, I mean, to strategize, to implement, and then see the result. Not always you will see, I mean, that the results are positive as well. You will see, I mean, is that when you are implementing where you were thinking from a consulting point of view, this will work, you see that it's not working. Then the key is how fast do you change? How fast do you adapt the strategy? So you need to be able, I mean, is to strategize and then execute. And when you are executing, really, I mean, is be able to do fast changes. Say, okay, fine tuning. And then it's adjusting as you go. But at the end, I mean, the goal or the result will be there.
Wow, I think those are some wise words. So Miguel, you've given some great advices to us today. We're nearing the end of the podcast. We have learned a lot in terms of the different avenues of finance. And like I mentioned, we've gotten so much advice from you. So I wanted to end the podcast by asking you, what is one advice that you had received when you were starting your journey?
I will give just three of my inspiration principles I have had, I mean, in life. Is one is have a dream, never give up, and take risk. For me, I mean, is those are the things, I mean, is that have given me most of the fulfillment, I mean, from a personal point of view, and then make me happy. I mean, and then that is probably the fourth. I mean, whatever you do, I mean, you have to choose what makes you happy, what makes you passionate about. I mean, from selling oranges on the street to be a big business owner. I mean, if selling oranges on the street makes you happy, do that. I mean, you don't want to be an owner of business that you are not happy of. So those four things for me: have a dream, never give up, take risk, and be happy.
Wow, I think that has left me inspired as well. I'm sure this is going to inspire my viewers. I'm going to take that as a big lesson to take my risk, be happy with what I'm doing, dream, like you've been saying throughout the podcast. With that, thank you so much, Miguel, for coming onto the podcast. It's been an amazing time talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing the journey of your job.
Thank you very much, Sihan, and really, it's congratulations for a very nice and big initiative like the Career Show. And I am sure, is you are helping thousands of people, is to shine the future. So thank you very much, and look forward to keep in touch with you.
Definitely. Let's stay in touch, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your kind words.
I hope you enjoyed this week's career discussion. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means a lot.